Hello, so this is going to be how to sound design number 8, and this is going to be voicing relationship when it comes to distortion. So when you have different voices meaning different notes at different amplitudes or pitches, and you feed it into distortion, it's going to drastically change the sound depending on, it's kind of like game staging, I guess, depending on how the amplitude or the pitch of the sound is. So if I just have one sine wave here, sounds, pretty standard sine wave. Add distortion, sounds pretty basic. If I add another sine wave to this, listen to that second sound wave by itself in distortion. Here's it with distortion. But then together, it almost gives it that more buzzy sound. But there's just one by itself, doesn't sound as crazy, but they almost affect each other. You notice how there's more harmonic content up here when I add this second oscillator. But then when I just have this first oscillator, it's just only all over here. So it's the relationship between the two voicings being added together and then put out to the tube filter is sounding, them being added together as adding a unique thing to the sound. If I just added this sound, let's say I have another massive, and I have another sine wave. Let's add, I don't know, what is it called? I want MIDI out. So we'll send this MIDI out to port 0. This will get MIDI information from port 0, and this will get the massive 2. We'll get MIDI information from port 0 as well. So let's change this to port 0 as well. If I play this, it'll play both of them. Or it should, unless this is port 0. What's wrong here? Interesting. Anyways, let's just play some note at the same time on both. Copy this, paste this. And if I do the same sine wave, that's 36. Add some tube distortion as well. Play them at the same time. See how it sounds different when both of these oscillators are being fed into the same distortion, whereas it sounds much different as when compared to when they're both being fed into their own specific distortion. Hang on. Now it's a sine wave. So yeah, that's the point I was trying to make. When two sounds are fed in the same distortion, and it's a different effect when compared to the same two sounds being fed into their own individual distortions. So these two sounds are literally affecting each other when they're being fed into the same distortion, and that has a unique effect. So let's go back to the amplitude thing. So just by modulating the amplitude, I can have a huge effect on the sound if I just mess with the amplitudes of each sound. See how that just made a very unique sound, and all I did was mess with the modulation of one of the sounds. Then maybe I could turn the distortion down a little bit. Doesn't sound as cool with less distortion. Sounds better with more. Maybe I don't want it that high up. Maybe I want to do a different octave, lower octave. Maybe I don't even want to be at an octave. Maybe I want to be something else. Maybe a major, maybe a seventh. Maybe I don't want to have this modulation. Maybe I want to pitch modulate both of them. Change the amplitude. Maybe I want to add more distortion. Add a volume envelope, maybe. But yeah, all I'm doing is, I mean, I added a volume envelope, but yeah, just changing the pitches and amplitudes of each voice. And I'm just using sine waves. I'm not doing anything that crazy. And I have a little lead here that I made, lead sound. So anyways, if I play this lead, normally, I could play it however I wanted, but if I had two notes next to each other, play two notes next to each other with the distortion, especially at a higher pitch, it sounds better. It gives that really high tension sound you hear kind of in guitars, like metal music. Yeah, so that when two notes are played next to each other, it gives that really nice tension sound. Without the distortion, which I have just a diode distortion, it doesn't sound as crazy, not as much tension, but then once you add the distortion with the two notes together, it's like the tension just increases. And I believe for this sound, yeah, just a saw wave and, or a triangle wave and a saw wave. So yeah, that's how voicing relationship affects your sound when it's fed in distortion.